Welcome. This is my good friend Yanni, or Ninja N as he called himself.
What up, man?
Ninja. You go.
You guys doing good today?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. How do we start?
Is there anything you like to talk about or not want to talk about, or should we
No, I don't
just?
care. We'll talk about whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Should I start, Yanni? Or
Yeah.
what year was the Browning formed, and where did they originate?
So I started the Browning in it was like 2004, 2005 as just a solo project that I did on like MySpace myself. Yeah, I was like 14 years old. I was just in high school making music, and I was really into like DDR, Dance Dance Revolution, and was really into metal stuff like Hatebreed, As I Lay Dying, Amon Amarth, stuff like that. And I really wanted to create like really heavy dance music that I got into through Dance Dance Revolution, and then combine it with really heavy metal. So 2004 solo project, just hanging out and putting out music on MySpace. Yeah,
14 years old.
yeah, for sure.
Whoa.
Yeah, I started writing and recording my own music when I was like 12. Me and a buddy would just had whatever. It was probably Audacity is what we started on, and he had some parents that were super supportive in like buying music equipment and all that stuff. So we would jam over there and have two microphones set up in the room, one on the drums and one on the guitar, and record like that. And so I started recording and stuff whenever I was like 12, and then when I was about probably 13, 14, got into Fruity Loops and trying to make techno because I was into, like I said, like dance games and whatnot. And so started getting into synthesizers and all that sort of stuff. So the very first Browning music that you can find that is like the really early stuff, most people won't even know what to search for, but you can search for like the Browning Bring Your Gats is the one of the first early songs that was online.
That on
Similar
MySpace?
concept. Yeah, well, you can find it on YouTube now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and so bunch of really early stuff that was just Fruity Loops and me. I didn't even have a way to record real guitar at the time, so it was just like whatever fake guitar Fruity Loops had an option for. And so, but yeah, I was really into making music. That I was involved in like the MySpace, like Nintendo Core scene. Just some people putting out some electronic metal way back in the day.
But when you were 14 years old and you were making ideas and stuff like that, did you bring that into first album? Some of the
So
ideas?
yeah, so actually the that song I just said, Bring Your Gats, it's always like I don't ever take like full songs besides one of the early songs I took full song, but like Bring Your Gats, I reused the main synth from that, and I think Standing on the Edge, which was one of the Brownings first like big songs. But on the first album, Burn This World, the first like release through a record label, Burn This World, the very last song on it was called The Sadist, and that was
Good song.
an exact recreation of a song that I did when I was 15. And so besides some lyrical changes, because at that point, whenever I was 15, I was just making music for fun. I was definitely not a lyricist or anything. Vocals was like my last concern. Music was always the first concern, so I had some goofy lyrics in it initially. And so made the lyrics a little more serious and made it work as a full song. But yeah, The Sadist on Burn This World actually is a song that I remade from whenever I was like 15. And even still to this day, I go back to songs that I wrote whenever I was really young. And more so, I don't reuse all the like full songs, but I can see potential or like some emotion and melodies that or creative stuff that I might have done whenever I was really young that I might not do now, being you know however people that have been doing it for 20 years are, and not as creative as whenever you're young or excited. And
Yeah.
so I definitely go back in time and look at old files. Like even this new album that we're dropping in January, or no, it's coming out in November. One of the songs is just I got down to the wire and was trying to figure out like one or two final songs, and I've saved all my files over the years,
That's a
since
good thing.
a long time. And so the song Soul Drift that is going to be on the new album, which is now my favorite song, is a file that I made probably 8 years ago. And so I made it like 8 years ago. I heard it and I hear all the potential with it. And so I kind of modernize it, restructure, all that sort of stuff. So it's, I do that all the time because I do feel like I want to be able to. I was doing some stuff whenever I was young. I think all of us do that would like to capture again now that you kind of lose some of whatever it might have been at the time that made it sound a certain way or gave it some uniqueness that you don't have anymore. And so yeah, I 100% I use old files, old songs all the time. That's why I think it's important to try to write music as much as possible, because at any moment, even if you don't use it right then, it might trigger something in you years down the line, going back and looking through it. So people ask me all the time, like, what music do I listen to? Where do I get my influence from? And it straight up, the only metal I listen to is the Browning. And the only music I really listen to is either music I'm working on or demos that I've done for years. So I don't really listen to much music besides music that I've either written before and is unreleased, or my own stuff.
Really dedicated.
For sure. I mean, I love the Brownings music. It's my favorite. It's my favorite
really
music.
Good. It's fantastic. Yeah, I remember back in 11, when I first, Burn This World album came out. I just thought to myself, I need to make music like that, because that was the perfect combination between having a really fucking good time and brutal breakdowns and melodies and everything. It was like,
definitely. And I think that's the whole point too. I actually love it whenever people hit me up with music that they say is heavily influenced by the Browning. I don't consider anything ripping off. I think that, like, if that's the case, then we've all ripped off everybody forever with everything. And so I don't think that that's a real thing. I think that the whole point of if you as a musician can influence the future of music in any way, then that's important. And so, the Browning isn't the biggest band that does electronics and metal by any means. But I do think that we actually might be one of the most influential, because I know that a lot of the bigger bands in electronic metal definitely pay attention to what the Browning's doing.
Yeah.
And so, and that's really important to me. I don't care if I'm the biggest, but if I have some sort of impact on the future of music, then that's the point of it,
Between the different bands that try to play this kind of music, I think you have the most unique sound, because everybody has. I don't know how to explain it. It's more old school, but still really beautiful.
I would agree. Like, there's, because one thing about the Browning definitely is that like I said, I only listen to my own music, really. It's rare that I listen to anything. If it is, it's probably like Rammstein, and like it's Rammstein, or maybe like Tattoo, like some really early 2000s like techno. Yeah, I love Tattoo.
Yeah, they're good.
And so I think that a lot of bands, especially the ones that are very large, that use electronic influence, I don't blame them at all for it, because as a musician, if you have the opportunity to really put out something for the masses, you should do it, just to survive. And so a lot of them take a lot of influence from popular music, whereas like the Browning, I really want to be, I just write whatever I'm going to write. I've had label and managers or people in the band that wanted me to write something that was more, however you want to say, like mass potential, like, and I've tried it too. I was like, okay, F it, I'll try it. And those songs just even don't perform as well as like ones that are just off the wall and chaotic, like I want to make. And so I feel like fans can tell.
More freedom.
Yeah, for sure. And so especially now, 0% of me is doing anything that's not just exactly like pushing songwriting to a different level and songwriting to a spot that I don't think anyone else really does. And I'm not saying I'm like some sort of like savant type freaking songwriter, but I think that if something that I do best is like creative songwriting with figuring out unique structures that still flow, that aren't like a standard structure, and trying to make it work in that way. And so that's like my whole goal, is to just create music that hasn't been made before.
Which album marked the Browning's debut, and what are some notable tracks from it?
from like just throughout the Brownings catalog.
Yeah.
Like for me, there's a couple different types of Browning songs, and to me, the most notable ones are the ones that I always call like that's the most Browning song that a song can be, which is songs like Hive Mind or Carnage, that really are extremely high energy, not a normal structure, and just smashing, you know, 5 genres into one. Where especially on Geist was the first album that the label especially and manager at the time was really trying to get me to write more structured songs that had like a proper structure and whatnot. And those songs are good, but also that album to me as a whole is pretty boring because I was trying to structure songs more than not. Whereas like on the album End of Existence, my whole intention, which was likely came from having to write structured stuff on Geist, was to not write one single song that had the standard song structure. And so the standout songs for me are, like I said, songs like Hive Mind, Carnage. I really like Anti-Ascendancy off End of Existence. I think that is one of the best songs I've ever written, ever, just as far as a creative structure that flows properly, you know, not going first chorus, breakdown, chorus, end. Like every song does that. And so the songs to me are the ones that are that stand out the most are those extremely melodic but chaotic songs. And so, but this new album, there's definitely songs on this new one that I think take all of that to another level. I do think, and I know a lot of bands say this, but I do think that this album is going to be the best Browning album, even as far as the fan standpoint, because it's doing old school Browning stuff with this new, way heavier version that the Browning has done. We've always been told that live we're way heavier than we are on album. And so on the past 2 albums, End of Existence and this new one called Omni, my goal was to like capture how heavy we are live on record. And so production has been changed up a little bit to prioritize it to sound more like that. And so on this new record, it's way heavier, darker, and then also that chaotic song structure that flows. And so I think this new record from top to bottom is like some of the best Browning stuff. And I think fans are going to agree.
Yeah, because End of Existence is something else. I really think it's something else.
Yeah.
So if you can top that, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, for sure. And End of Existence, that was a big thing for me. That was a big moment that was where I really realized, maybe it's because I tried it on Geist, and not that I was disappointed with Geist as a record, but it was the one that I was like really trying to be like, okay, let's do these songs that have potential for like mass appeal. So they were more structured, rock feeling and everything. There were still some really good and songs on there, but End of Existence, the whole point was like, okay, clearly that's not what our fans want. Like, I pay attention to what songs fans react to. I pay attention to how crowds react and all that sort of stuff. And so End of Existence was me coming to the realization people want chaotic, they want heavy, they want you know, big synths. But also at the same time with End of Existence as well was realizing that I could do all of that while still doing this unique sound in a way that people that don't necessarily like synths might like it. And so End of Existence was I experimented a lot with still having synthesizers and backing tracks 100% of the time, but doing it in a way that wasn't so overbearing all the time for people that don't really like synthesizers. Because if you ask anybody, like, why don't you like the Browning? The average person doesn't like the Browning. They'd say, I just don't like synths. And so if you listen to songs like Poison, which is the first song we released off this new record, and that one followed a lot of what I did with End of Existence, was where I still had all these electronics, but they were just mixed and done in a way where they're a little darker and a little under maybe guitars and drums. So they're still there to give the ambience, to give the melody, but not as in your face and like, you know, corny of a sounding synth that people don't really like. Because when people think synthesizers, they think about like DDR, you know, like weedle, 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 you know, stuff like that. Yeah. Where like synths really you have an infinite amount of sounds you make with synthesizers. And so I really think I dialed in the synths now in a way that the mass amount of people can actually bear listening to it that don't even like synthesizers, you know? Yeah, and End of Existence was a big part of that for me, was figuring out that balance. And I think it worked. End of Existence, people might not realize it just because we didn't do a lot of touring and stuff on End of Existence because COVID and just, you know, working out tours. But End of Existence is the Brownings' biggest album so far. And so, like, as far as the streams, the fan reactions, the amount of people that found out about the band, End of Existence is the biggest Browning album. And I think that this one is going to be even bigger, especially now working with my new record label, Fixed.
Talk about the earlier some of your influences, but who are some of your key influences that has shaped Browning's musical style?
Yeah, so early on, it was obviously a lot of metalcore. Like, I love breakdowns. I love stuff like that. Like, everyone loves breakdowns. As far as breakdowns go, especially with the newer stuff where I'm trying to make it be perceived a lot heavier, I take a lot of influence from like Despised Icon. If you listen to Despised Icon and you add synth layers on top, it sounds like Browning breakdowns. Straight up, like the End of Carnage. If you go listen to that and you strip away the synthesizers, it sounds exactly like Despised Icon, like super fast, chaotic, you know, heavy breakdowns. But as far as artists go, I think that my influence more so, it happened a lot whenever I was young. I don't know how much stuff really in the modern world I'm influenced by, especially in metalcore or metal in general. I think that all of my influence comes from nostalgia, which I think that's what all of us really go back to anyways. And so, but early on in the Browning, if you strip away the synthesizers from 90% of the Browning songs, it sounds like a Monomarth. Straight up. They write the simplest, catchy riffs, which go really well with synthesizers. Because especially early on, my goal was to blend the two. You couldn't tell if it was a guitar or a synth. And so those types of riffs just tie together, because if you think about a Monomarth riffs, you know, bam, 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 like you do a synth, so that's like that sort of riff was everything back then. So go listen to anything off Burn This World, take off the synthesizers, and it's a Monomarth song straight up. And because I just, as far as guitar goes, I either want it to be a crazy breakdown or I want it to be a super catchy metal riff, you know. And so yeah, and even today, whenever I write riffs, all my riffs sound like a Monomarth. People just don't hear it because it has a whole bunch of other crap going on.
I could hear it on Burn This World.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it was simple, but the melodic and you hit the notes with different synthesizers was right there with the guitars.
Yep, 100%. Like, listen to Dominator. That song, it straight up could be, you know, basically Pursuit of Vikings Part 2, you know?
Yeah.
The synthesizers out.
It's a good song, though.
Oh, yeah. And one thing that I actually want to start doing a little bit to kind of like emphasize it more, I want to start doing some content online where I take metal songs and add synths to it and show people how much that can change like the vibe of a song. So, you know, take an As I Lay Dying song and add synths to it, and it's like, you know.
Well, I do it in my band too, as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So synthesizers and heavy breakdowns and just a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, to me, even whenever I'm writing stuff outside of the Browning, I write all sorts of stuff just for fun, but it always comes back to having some sort of electronic added to it, whether it's like a drone or just like a choir, strings, anything. Like, I can't get myself to write music that doesn't have some form of layers to it, so it's necessary.
Can you name a few of the band's most popular or influential songs?
The Brownings?
Yeah.
So I think that Carnage was a really influential song for like the future of what the Browning is, because it showed me how much I mean, all of my stuff is based off of how do people react and what are people like clearly leaning to whenever they think about the Browning. And so for the Browning, a big part of what I want to do all the time is mash up a bunch of genres. And so, and also in a way that is completely seamless, because that's a way that a lot of people mash up genres, but it's always like not properly transitioned between certain things. Where if you listen to Carnage, I mean, it goes from a big breakdown into a massive hardstyle part, into a rap part, into like a double bass breakdown. And so it's like that dynamic, especially watching reaction channels, watching them react to that stuff, they're just, and because they're a good gauge off of how a normal person might see it. And they're just like, what is going on? Every single part, when a new thing pops in, they are caught off guard. And I think that's a big thing that metal is missing nowadays, is it's too predictable because people writing rock structured songs, and whereas like you want to catch people off guard. So Carnage was a big thing for me that made me realize how important it is to catch people off guard and keep them on their toes. They don't know what it's going to go into. But then also Skybreaker was a big realization for me as well, and really showed the dynamic of what Browning fans were looking for. They were looking for extreme dynamics in the Browning because they love stuff like Carnage that's extremely chaotic, but then they did love Skybreaker that was like no screaming, just a powerful like anthemic synth song. But for me, what I've done with that knowledge is I don't want to have to sacrifice the heaviness and chaoticness of the Browning to put out more songs like Skybreaker. And so I actually started a whole nother band just to do that sound specifically. And so it's a band that I started with my wife called The Defect, that is taking the anthemic synth rock side of the Browning and making a whole band of just that sound. And so it's called The Defect. We have 3 songs out already. And then so I have that one to be my mainstream kind of big anthemic synth rock band, and then the Browning to be the extremely chaotic, extremely heavy version of what I do. And so, but early on, a couple of the very early game-changing songs that was like that people really resonated with, it actually kind of depended on region. Like the songs that were big in America weren't necessarily the songs that were big in like Europe, and that was a big determining factor for me as well for how I wrote. I mean, I'm mainly influenced by like European music because the electronic music I like is from the Netherlands. The metal I like is from either Nordic stuff or German. All the bands I listen to are either German or from freaking some Nordic country, or and then the electronic music is all European. And so what I realized is the melodies I was doing were really catching with the European fans, where the heavy side was catching with the American fans more so. So our first show that we ever did in Europe was in Germany at a festival called With Full Force. I assume nobody knew who we were just because it was our first time there. We weren't a big band. This was in like 2011 or something. And no backdrop on the stage, nothing saying that we were about to come on. But we were standing there behind stage waiting to go on. We went up after Heaven Shall Burn, and the whole crowd was standing there waiting for us, which I thought it'd be empty. And before we started, the crowd was chanting the melody for Bloodlust. The da da da. Never would that happen in the States, you know? And so
it's a good song.
Yeah, and then as we played the set, the crowd kept doing that to the melodies. They kept singing the melodies for the synths, and never would do fans in the States do that. I've started making them do it in the States because it's cool, but you know, that made me realize that the melodic side was more important in Europe, whereas the heavy side and the heavier songs were more important in the States. So in the States, songs like Standing on the Edge, Dominator, songs like that were the main songs. The song called Ashamed. But in Germany, it was all like Bloodlust, song called Gravedigger. And whenever I realized that the European fans did that, I specifically started writing my melodies to be singable, because like the crowd can't sing a melody that's going like, they can't do that, but they can sing do 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 do, you know? And so I started forming my melodies to be all singable melodies, because if they're singable, they're also memorable. And so the Germans and Europeans really helped me like figure out how to write melodies better. And so yeah, Bloodlust, Gravedigger, big songs in Europe, and Standing on the Edge, Dominator, Ashamed, big songs in the States.
Gravedigger is really good.
Yeah, well, I wrote Gravedigger specifically for that, and the working title for Gravedigger was called Sing Along. Yeah, because I knew it. I wrote that. I was like, the Germans are going to sing this crap. I know it.
Do you want to come to Norway and play sometime?
Yeah, I think we've played. We did a festival there one year. I forget the name of the festival, but it was with like At the Gates, Behemoth, I forgot who all was on it, but it was some indoor festival that was at a hotel.
In Falmo?
It might have been, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago. It was in some big convention center hotel type place.
Yeah.
But yeah, the plan for next year, because when COVID hit, I obviously shut down the whole music industry. I had to figure out my life because my entire life has been music, and so I also had a baby during COVID and all that, and so just getting everything worked out to where I can be full time with the band again. And so next year we're going full time. I actually have recently done a deal with a new European manager who's specifically just managing us in Europe, and we've already have 2 tours planned for next year and all sorts of stuff. So yeah.
What can you tell us a little bit about the challenges you have faced throughout your career, and how have you overcome them?
Oh, I mean, it's infinite amount. You know, it's as any musician knows, like there's always a hurdle. There's never not a hurdle to go over. Even with large bands, is why you see freaking Metallica making whole documentaries about their drama. And so like it's there's always something. For the Browning, there's been like real consistent hurdles the whole time. Just as far as more so that I felt like until recently that it's been hard to get help in a lot of ways, not just in the industry, but also in writing music or anything like that. It's pretty much been by myself writing the music, doing all the creative side and everything, which is fine because it does have that distinct sound, and I know that I can be pretty particular when trying to write music with people. But there have been some times that I've been like, can someone please help me? Like I'm like struggling here to do this crap. And so I've never really had a moment in the band that there's been someone that's just been like sending me like 10 demos to be like, hey, check out all this crap I did, because I would love to have some stuff to work off of at times. It's a struggle when everything is coming completely out of you. But that probably just comes from it having toured so much, being such a touring based band as opposed to like a studio band. Because anyone that's ever been in the band has pretty much been just a touring musician as opposed to being like in the band, in the studio, writing music, anything like that. So that's kind of been an overarching struggle for me personally, is just and that's why sometimes there's 2.5 years between an album, because it's hard to be in the mindset and put out all the stuff, and also with how particular I am and everything, that is the hardest thing, is just everything coming from me. But now everyone that's in the band right now is very excited, which is Hardcore Keem, and we have a drummer, Brandon, that is going to be touring with us. But Hardcore Keem is a big part of the future of the Browning. Me and him work together a lot outside of the band as well on some stuff, but he is a big fan of the band, which is something that hasn't really happened, having someone that, at least it feels like the people that have toured with the Browning was with it to tour as opposed to being with it because they love the music. Keem is a big fan of the Browning. He has a picture. He came to one of our shows like 12 years ago of me and him looking like a little baby, taking a picture with me at this show. And so like that's really cool to have someone in the band that just absolutely loves it and believes in it, and so, but also not only help as far as that side, like within the band, but also help within the industry. Every musician and everybody that's not even a musician knows that the industry is out to get you in any possible way possible. And in my opinion, there's not enough musicians working in the industry, and there's too many people just taking advantage of musicians working in the industry. And so I also had always felt up until this point, which is a new change, before people I worked with, I felt like they were just taking advantage of hard work that I had done building a fan base and writing this music and doing a lot of this stuff. Whereas, I would have also loved to work with a manager or a record label or whoever that is just like excited about the music, not just waiting for me to do my thing, And so, but that's totally not the case now. Over the course of COVID, I got rid of everybody involved with the band, literally everybody. And so, besides my booking agent, I kept him. He's awesome. I've been with him for like 9 years or something. But now I'm working with this label called Fixed, and you would think that from my experience with record labels, I would be like, F all labels. I'm going to just be independent. I'm not going to worry about this bullcrap anymore. But Fixed is a different story. Fixed only works with bands that are like the Browning. They only work with electronic rock and metal bands. That is it. Whereas other labels, you know, I signed to Earache, who's known for like death metal. I was signed to Spine Farm, who is like rock, you know, stuff like Bullet for My Valentine, you know, big labels that can do their freaking thing, but aren't connected to the Browning on like a personal level of like what we need and what we do. So Fixed is a totally different story. It's a small group of people. They're based out of Iowa. You know, it's not some big New York bullcrap that you're dealing with. It's you know, less than 10 people in Iowa running a record label that only works in electronic metal. And the founder of the label is an artist called Cell Dweller, big time electronic metal artist. And so, yeah, they are. It's nice to have someone in the band that is a huge fan of the band, and then also a label that is a big fan of the band as well. And so for the first time ever in my career, I feel like I'm actually surrounded by people that actually like the band rather than just wanting to take advantage of it. And so I think that more so than me doing everything myself, that has been the biggest hurdle, is just being surrounded by people that actually enjoy it, you know?
Yeah, you say you do everything. Do you do the vocal as well? All the singing
I
stuff?
do. Yeah, 100% of the music has been me. And
Every
so
album?
guitar, drums, synth, vocals, everything.
Yeah, but on every album?
Mhm.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Good job, man.
Yeah, I mean, basically how it goes back, because like I said, I started this in 2004 as a solo project on MySpace. So I've been writing this music forever. Whenever I decided to make it a full band, like on Burn This World, whenever I was like, okay, I want to take this seriously. I want to take it from just a project and make it into a full thing, do tours and all that sort of crap. I found musicians that the first guys that joined the Browning were amazing, you know, really game-changing people to be a part of what I was doing. And but even then, was writing all the music and everything. You know, whenever we got down to tracking, I would teach them how to do the parts, and everyone would record like their guitar or their drums. But it inevitably got to where, like, people, not the first initial people, but the people after that have, you know, I've had a whole crap ton of different people in the band. It got to where, like, we were in the studio, they hadn't heard the songs we were recording, but I had a whole album done. And so I'm sitting in the studio with a guitar in front of the guitar. It's like, this is how you play it. And then he'd have to try to learn it while trying to track it. And it got stupid. And so now, no, I just try to do everything 100%. Instead of teaching someone how to play the song so they can record, I just record it all myself. I think that's one reason that the Brownings, like, people really appreciate the Browning, is that the sound has been so consistent. So many bands are so all over the place, change their sound. You know, they get this guitarist that writes stuff like this and completely changes the vibe. Whereas like the Browning has sound like the Browning since, if you go back and play one of my demos from 2006, you will know that that's the Browning, you know?
Yeah, but I can hear some differences between, let's say, Geist and End of Existence.
Yeah.
Is it more down-tuned or with the guitar, or?
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of like, especially in the modern way, you know, I was trying to add to the chaos of what the Browning is in the modern stuff. Like Geist has like 4 or 5 different guitar tunings on it, you know, and it goes down to double drop E and then has songs in D, you know, like, and so it's to add to the chaos of the songs. And also just with modern capabilities, you're able to do that. Back when I'm writing, you know, even Geist or before that, you didn't have the gear capabilities to just change guitar tunings on a whim. Now you press a button and the guitar's tuned different, you know? And so before we would have had to have 7 guitars on tour. Now we bring one guitar, press a button, and go from, you know, B to G to double drop D. This new record, there's parts, I don't do it on full songs, but there's parts that I drop the guitar down to double drop G. So it's tuned to what a bass would be on G. And so, yeah. just to
Doom.
add to it, you know. Yeah, exactly. It's just, you know, floppy noise.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I've noticed you have a German title on the End of Existence.
Yeah.
And also the newest song, the music video.
Yeah.
You have German in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How come?
That's just I mean, like I said, all my favorite bands are German. If you asked me, and they're all European too, but a lot of it's German. And I also, a lot of my favorite people are all German. And so it's really a shout out to just Germany and more so like European culture in general, as far as whenever it comes to music, because there is a difference between American culture towards music and European culture towards music. It feels like Europeans appreciate art a lot more, and especially creative weirdness and all that sort of stuff. That's why you get these super unique bands coming out of Europe, where in the States you get a lot of we're trying to be shine down type bands coming out of the States. And so it's like I have a lot of respect for Europeans and their love for heavy music and just music in general. But I've connected a lot personally with a lot of a lot of Germans, and I have a Discord server that a lot of really dedicated fans and now friends, because I'm in there talking to them all the time, are in there. And like I said, music has always been my career. It's what I've done forever. And I streamed on Twitch for like 6 years. I wrote 3 albums live on Twitch full time, the writing process 100%. And the Germans, it was mainly Germans in there. Like I'd say like 80% of the viewers in there were German. And I called them Germanies because they were the ones that were supporting. I mean, I had like medical issues. They donated me $1,000 to pay for medicine. Like they were paying my rent. They were paying, like Germans were supporting me fully through like 6 years of my music career, like themselves. Because like as a small band, you can't really make money outside of, you know, it's hard to make money outside of it. So streaming and fans donating and stuff was 100% the only reason that I could have continued doing music. And the Germanies were the ones that really made that happen for me. And so it's kind of and I've become really good friends with all of them. And still to this day, I've had people that, you know, have helped me out for 8 years at this point. And so I just love the German people, and I just, you know, they've supported so much.
Yeah, but there's a lot of EDM metal, if you want to call it that, coming out from Germany now.
Exactly. Yeah, and then that's the thing too, is like my style is like, there was a point where people thought that the Browning was a German band, like early. We used to tour in Europe more than we toured in the States. One time I was at a show in like Montana here in the States, and I was talking to this guy for like 10 minutes, and he said, "So this is your first time here?" I said, "To Montana?" He was like, "No, to the States." He thought we were European because we toured there more than we toured in the States. And I'm like, I don't know how you're listening to me right now and think I'm German or something, but like 100%. I mean, if you ask me my top 3 bands, they'd be Rammstein, Electric Callboy, We Better Than Butter. And so, and actually the German in that song, Deceiver, the new Browning song, those are actually 2 German fans from my server that do the voice. And so it's my boy Shagrath doing the deep talking voice. I basically say in there, "Hey, I have this pattern. I need you to say this." And they also translate, make sure I say the crap right in German, or that I have the right words and stuff. And so in my server, and whenever I do these streams with writing music, they're actually collaborating with me a lot. So I'm writing music that they, in that moment, want to hear and want me to make. And so Shagrath does the guy German voice in that song, and Nader does the female voice in that song. And so it's 2 fans doing those voices in the song too.